To two gentlemen. The Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen is with us in studio tonight, and former Rarieda Member of Parliament and immediate former Public Accounts Committee Chair Nicholas Gumbo, who was in charge of the Parliament investigations into NYS1, will join us on the show a little bit later. Senate Majority Leader Murkomen, thank you so much for making time for the big story tonight. As we witnessed the arrest, and now we understand they will be charged in court tomorrow, there are those who are not too optimistic, saying same script, different cast, it will be another merry-go-round, no convictions. What do you tell those people, Senator?
Well, I think we have a responsibility as a country to continue building our institutions, and our institutions are as good as the persons who are manning them. I think that the new DCI, Mr. Kinoti, and the new DPP, Mr. Nordin Haji, I think have brought a new impetus on the fight against corruption. Because the criminal justice system depends more on investigations and proper prosecutions. And I think we must give credit where it's due and give a chance to the new DCI, the new DPP, to be able to handle these cases with the energy they have brought in and with the confidence that they have that they are going to get success. What we need to do as Kenyans is to give them a chance and give them our support.
So in a sense, Senator, are you saying that in making those changes, the president had gotten to a point of acknowledging that the leaders and the heads of those institutions were perhaps those standing in the way of justice?
Well, I think I can't say per se that they were standing in the way of justice, but we can basically say that the president needed institutions that are able to cooperate, individuals that can work together as a team, and new energy, new impetus, new talents, a new commitment. And sometimes when you remember the previous holders of the office had been there for a long time. And sometimes because you've been there for a long time, there is a possibility that those below you and the network that has been built around may not take you so serious or may not give you the support you need. So I think it is a case of new broom, and we believe that they will sweep better.
You appear to have a lot of confidence. Is this new breath of fresh air? But history tells a different story, Senator, because even for NYS, it has been moved from the Ministry of Devolution to now Public Service. It has a new PS, new officials, but we have an NYS too. So there are those who'd argue this newness you speak about, it's only of two officials, the new DPP, the DCI, middle-level investigators, it's all the same. So there cannot be said to be so much hope on this newness you speak of, sir.
I think the discussion we're having is not so much on the implementation of programs within NYS or the management. The concern we have is whether there are proper investigations and prosecutions on matters corruption. I listened to the new DPP speak today, and he said clearly that there is nothing like NYS2. This is a continuation. In fact, he acknowledged that some of the prosecutions that are going to take place as from tomorrow are related to cases of 2013, 2014, 2015. He didn't tell us that, which means that there must have been some laxity on dealing with this matter from the onset. And I think new people coming in was necessary so that they can go back to the history of what was happening within NYS and get to the real prosecution, the real issues. So I think it's misleading to tell Kenyans that, in my own opinion, and reading the DPP, that there is a disconnect between what has been happening in NYS and that there is a new corruption that's taking place. I think what the DPP has done is to go back to history and re-examine the books and re-examine the role of every individual related to NYS scandal as it were from as early as 2013.
Yeah, there's also concern, you know, because in the past, we've seen the back and forth and the blame game, the judiciary being told and accused of not prosecuting once these matters are brought before them. But the judiciary, has argued the case is as good as the evidence that's presented before them. So that in this matter, yes, there's all this hullabaloo, high voltage arrest, but is it too rushed so that then it's a process to, appear to be doing something about corruption, but that in the end, we'll end up with what we witnessed with the last NY scandal. 3 years on, all have been acquitted, sir?
Personally, I wouldn't, I cannot, as an officer of the court, I cannot fault the judiciary for the decisions they will make. You see, the judiciary is our beacon of hope. It is the place where individual rights are protected from situations where there could be mass lynching, there could be political prosecutions, there could be situations where the wrong people are being used as sacrificial lambs. So you cannot really blame the judiciary if they take a stand and say, so-and-so is clean. What you blame judiciary for, in my opinion, is if they delay cases or there is an inordinate delay in terms of cases, or sometimes that they are going to have leniency on those that are being prosecuted. I have the faith that there is no possibility that judiciary from the magistrate to High Court to Court of Appeal to Supreme Court could be wrong all the way through the appeal process. What we must invest in is a proper investigation, proper prosecution, qualified prosecutors who take their case seriously, and to a great extent to ensure that in the judiciary side, the cases are expedited and that there will be no unnecessary injunctions and court orders that perhaps are only used to frustrate the court process. I will never fault the judiciary for ultimate decision. If the judiciary says that certain person is innocent, that is the constitutional right of the person who has been brought before the courts, because we don't want to hang an innocent person just to please public that corruption is being dealt with in a country.
Yeah, and scandal after scandal, leader of majority in the Jubilee administration. The president now on his second term, he has been quoted in the past as saying he's done all he can. And now, again, he continues to talk about firm directives to ensure this time around we see action. What, in your view, is it that stops progress and even gains in as far as the fight on graft is concerned for Jubilee?
It must be, when we read our constitution, we must understand distribution of responsibilities and power to various institutions. There is a reason why the Director of Public Prosecution was made an independent office from the Attorney General's office, and that the President's powers only involve appointing the Director of Public Prosecution, also giving support in terms of financial funding of those offices, including the EACC, and DCI. But although DCI has a more link to the executive, the point we are talking about here is that the president, when he says he has done what he needs to do, is in terms of supporting and funding those institutions. But we must also not forget that the president has fired so many people in 2016, and he has been quick to ensure that people are fired if they are or step aside when they are facing investigations, and eventually quit office if they are prosecuted. So there is a role for every individual, and Kenyans cannot have their cake and eat it at the same time. We must accept that if we are going to have a president who will not meddle on the issues of prosecution and who is not going to intervene to stop people being prosecuted, we must then accept that the power of independence given to the independent institution, including the judiciary, includes the power for them to take responsibility if they're unable to discharge their functions. But you see, from a political system like ours, if you look at the United States, for example, the fact that judiciary is independent, the investigations are independent, you can see the president of the United States is always being pushed to, being under investigation related to cases of last elections. that is the level of independence we need to reach as a country in future, where the president will not be blamed on matters of investigation and prosecution, because we have accepted as a nation that the independence of institutions to work includes them taking a blame if they don't succeed.
There are reports that this round of investigations, this fresh round, was initiated by the president himself. Is that correct?
Well, I think investigations, the president promised the country that he was going to take firm stand on matters of corruption. And you can see it, you don't even need to be told, by the changes he made in both the DCI office and the DPP's office. It was a demonstration that the president wanted to support these institutions to be able to carry out another fight against corruption. So definitely, he has had a role in pushing for those institutions to act, though independently, but in the interest of the country.
So was this initiated from the presidency, would you say?
Pardon?
Was this round of investigations initiated by the presidency?
Well,
yes or no?
You know, I can't say expressly that the president initiated himself the investigations or not. But you can read from the actions of directing government agencies to cooperate with investigators, and particularly saying that zero tolerance to corruption, that he has given support to necessary independent entities to do their job. I don't think you can say there is no constitutional responsibility of a president to instigate or to initiate investigations. The president's role is to provide leadership to every institution to do their job.
Okay, you say people can read into this and see his commitment to that. However, in some quarters, there's a growing sentiment that this is largely a political war, an implosion of sorts within the Jubilee administration targeted at the deputy president. What do you say to that?
First of all, it would be irresponsible for any person to say that fight against corruption is targeted on the person of deputy president or even majority leader like myself or any other leader, because investigations on matters of corruption and crimes are individual. Every person takes individual criminal responsibility. There is no corporate responsibility on matters of corruption. And I do not know how investigating and punishing persons who have looted our money in the youth sector in the NYS, or those who are involved in matters of maize, or any other sector would have anything to do with the deputy president, because if it has something to do with deputy president, then the investigation should be about the deputy president himself. And I am surprised that such conversation would take place even amidst deputy president public pronouncement that him and the president have given the necessary support to all the institutions to carry out the work they need to do. I think those are some of the sideshows that are meant to derail the fight against corruption and to give excuses to individuals that would be facing cases in court to hide behind political wars and political differences. And it is also whipped to try to create an impression that the deputy president does not support fight against corruption, the president supports fight against corruption, which doesn't surprise me, Sophie, because the person facing election 2022 is the deputy president. The president is no longer running for office in 2022. The reason why this kind of narrative is being whipped is, of course, this kind of emotions and narrative is being put to the public is because those who are doing so want to create an agenda around 2022 to say, even though deputy president was the deputy president of Uhuru Kenyatta, the success on fight against corruption, that credit doesn't go to the deputy president. That's why I have seen the narrative around this issue saying president himself. But it's not just president, it is the president and his government. All the entities within his government supporting the agenda of running this country, including the deputy president, including all of us who are in parliament, are actually acting according to the constitution and for the best interest of the country.
To those who say there's a perception of corruption around the person of the deputy president, make allegations of certain things, and in the last NYS scandal, you remember there were individuals close to the deputy president that were named by then the devolution CS. In fact, during the investigations by the PAC, your law firm was also cited in as far as some of the transactions are concerned, so that there are those who say you tell a person's character by those around him.
I think that's a good question. You cannot say I am around deputy president and I'm not around the president. The person who supported me to be the majority leader in the Senate is the president. The person who supported Honorable Duale to be majority leader in the National Assembly is the president. You cannot say we are more around the deputy president and not around the president. That kind of dichotomy, unless you want to say because I'm a Kalenjin and because of my tribe, I can only be linked to the deputy president. Number two, I am more than happy because the DPP now is in office, the new DCI is in office. I'm more than happy that the real discussion and fight against corruption is coming out. Those who are dropping names, because I remember the only way my name came to the public was that I intimidated the cabinet secretary because she was fighting corruption. Now it's coming clear that that department, as from 2013, has been suffering with matters of corruption. And I would never have been in a greater position to intimidate anybody not to fight corruption, to the extent that at the moment we are having this serious scandal taking place. And I want to tell you, Sophie, that one of the reasons why the fight against corruption is undermined is because Kenyans easily chase a squirrel and, run away from and leave the antelope. If someone hears Murkomen's name or any other leader's name, once has been dropped to deputy president, they stop chasing the real persons who have stolen public money, and because a big name has been dropped, and I'm glad they think my name is big, then, the fight against corruption stops. But I am glad that they are entities, and I have said before, if I am found culpable, or any other leader is found culpable, we must stop this nonsense about hiding on your tribe or hiding on your relationship with the deputy president. You've never heard me in public say that, I am culpable or I've been made culpable of anything because of my relationship with the deputy president. And I will never. If every leader in this country must be held personally liable without the baggage of hanging on the court of the president or the deputy president on any matter against corruption. And as I have said, if there is any culpability on my part or any other leader, you must carry your own cross.
All right, I want to just talk about those investigative agencies, and we'll pull up some graphics we've prepared on the Act of Parliament that gives effect to Article 157 and 158. Just train your eyes to the screen next to you, Senator. Part 2, and you have the investigative agencies being defined in relation to public prosecutions, that this means the National Police Service, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Commission on Administration of Justice, Kenya Revenue Authority, Anti-Counterfeit Agency, or any other government entity mandated with criminal investigation role under written law. So that's how we've had the law. But there is now the miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2018, and in it, there is this part, which you'll see on your screen just shortly. It says the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Act 2013, number 2 of 2013, in the definition of investigative agency, deletes the expression Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So my question to you, Leader of Majority, is this. Is the government seeking to remove investigative powers from the EACC?
First of all, that law is yet to be debated in Parliament, but
it's a proposal.
It's a proposal that is in the National Assembly, and once there is such proposals and been brought to the House, we must subject it to proper discussion and debate with even public participation. Personally, I think I'll give my comments when the time comes, but let me say this. The number of investigative agencies in this country is such that we must sit down and discuss how they will harmoniously cooperate with the DPP because that is the entity that is dealing with prosecution. And ask ourselves, should investigations be done by DCI, by EACC, or at what stage can you say that if an investigation is taking place in EACC or DCI, the other institutions must wait for the investigations that are taking place from the first institution that took responsibility? And I think that discussion is going to be, we are going to have that discussion in Parliament to see, and I think we will do it against the backdrop that many people are saying the EACC has not lived up to the expectations of many Kenyans. But that discussion must be actually, we must have it in the context of the multiplicity of institutions that are fighting, that are investigating matters related to corruption.
Yeah, because in this time around, with these fresh scandals arising and the allegations, EACC appears to have been sidelined. So the DCI and the DPP, and that is why with the Jubilee government that has majority in both houses, if the intention is to take away investigative powers from the EACC, and we are starting to see this kind of sidelining, then one would say there's a mission to render it important, useless, because then it just becomes a conveyor belt. It can't do much. So what is your comment to even the exclusion we are seeing in this round of investigations?
My take will be that, first of all, EACC has been in office for as many years as, since its inception, and even when it was Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission and so forth. You cannot say that they have been sidelined, because if they wanted to do what DCI, the new DCI, has led the institution to do, they would have done it. I don't think there is any, and secondly, if they wanted to be sidelined, the DPP would not have directed EACC to work together with DCI on the matter of maize that has just arisen. So I think it is just that the DCI has come to office, re-looked at the issue of NYS, and has done a meticulous job, a sterling performance actually, considering the period of time he has been in office, and that credit must be given to him. We shouldn't really castigate the absence of EACC or DCI because of the absence of EACC, because EACC would have done the same if they wanted to do so.
Do we need the EACC?
Well, I think there is a role. The reason why EACC was put in place was to have an institution that would focus more on economic crimes and more or less what was called white-collar crimes. There is actually need for such institutions to support the DCI. But
and yet we haven't seen much from them in terms of bearing fruit, results.
In reality, that's why I'm saying in reality, in many countries in the world, including South Africa, that has succeeded in carrying out very high-profile prosecution on matters related to corruption, in those countries, the director of criminal investigation on the equivalent office suffices, because those people, the police department takes it serious, its work seriously, and you didn't need to create a commission to deal with that matter. And I think that is the basis with which we are discussing the question of prosecution, investigative powers of the EACC in that proposed bill.
All right, a final question before I let you go, sir. So yesterday on Checkpoint, the government spokesperson, Kiraithe, admitted to some failure as far as the IFMIS, Integrated Financial Management System, is concerned, in that in 2014, the Auditor General raised a myriad of glaring anomalies and gaps with that system that pretty much made it like a marketplace. And yet it had been touted as a foolproof, bulletproof, if you like, foolproof kind of a system that cannot be penetrated. But now it appeared anyone from anywhere can do anything within IFMIS. 4 years later, the PS Treasury has now written to say that they are going to deactivate all user IDs to clean up the system 4 years later. So that this begs the question, is the Jubilee administration really serious on what we like to call fighting corruption, or is it a facilitator? Because how does such a system stay unaudited, and in this sense with this kind of gaps 4 years on, sir?
Well, a failure is a failure. I cannot defend you and say we have done so well insofar as the fight against corruption is concerned. or that IFMIS is a good system. I mean, counties were also complaining that as a result of IFMIS, they had other challenges, not necessarily related to corruption, in terms of transfer of funds and use of funds and so forth. So I think when such issues are raised, we must take them for what it is. We must admit that there was a failure, there was inordinate delay, but we cannot continue blaming ourselves on that issue. We must take responsibility and make the necessary correction. And I think, as I told you, the new persons within the DPP and the DCI have helped us to be able to reflect on these issues. And I think even the Auditor General's office has always raised those issues for purpose of improvement. And the improvement, of course, costs a lot of money. Perhaps because the DCI, I heard the DPP saying that there will be also prosecution related to management of IFMIS, an investigation in his press statement earlier, that there will be investigation related to management of IFMIS. Perhaps the delay in changes within the IFMIS will be unearthed to have been, those delays were necessitated by those who wanted to continue with corruption in entities, in institutions like the NYS and so forth. So if we become patient a little bit to see what the DPP has, it might end up being that the sabotage on the question of improving the management structure and the systems within the IFMIS itself may be linked also to corruption, and therefore people must take responsibility.
All right, sir, we will leave it there. Leader of Majority in the Senate, and Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen, with us on the big story tonight. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. But please stay with KTN News, because after this short break, the former Rarieda Member of Parliament and also immediate former Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, that's Nicholas Gumbo, will be joining me. And he was the committee that looked into NYS1, as it has fondly, or has popularly, if you like, been called. So we'll talk about the recommendations they made and what he has made of the developments so far. Please stay with us.